you'd be hard pressed, I think, at this point to find a successful classroom that doesn't have some form of, visuals that aid in the instruction. It'd be hard and probably pretty boring.
I follow the philosophy of Universal Design for Learning, so it's also called UDL, and I find that all students have a different way of learning, and so being able to give students a choice between a written piece of work, right, like on paper, or a video. Sometimes people prefer videos over text, and so I give them lots of different choices throughout in order for kids to be able to show me how they learn best.
Having visuals and things for kids to reference when they're learning is really important, especially because I teach world cultures. So photos and videos tend to be really important in those areas, because without them, it's really hard to teach kids what others look like if they don't actually have a reference to see what the other looks like.
Most kids don't have any prior knowledge about cells. They need something to hang it on. I think about this metaphor of Velcro, and kids need something to hang the information on in their brains, and that the visuals that I'm giving them to give them background knowledge or just give them conceptual ideas, that's the Velcro, so that as they're learning through the unit, they have something to stick it onto. Otherwise, they're just learning the information, but there's nothing to stick it onto, and then they don't hold on to the information.
And so by giving them lots of options through visuals, through pictures, through anything, that all kids can feel like they can achieve and be the best readers and writers they can.
I try to use different methods in the classroom. When I'm instructing students, I try to use visuals and using different types of fonts, books with different fonts for the characters, so the students can create a voice in their head so the character comes alive for them. That way the comprehension is stronger. So I give them a starting visual, but they can always adapt and make it their own.
But what I see is a feeling of empowerment, because I think the visuals make the content more accessible to more kids.
When I use technology that is individualized, or media that's individualized for the student, I see a better buy-in because it's what they like to create. So some students like to use their phones, and if it's for a learning purpose, I will let them use their phone for maybe some word research.
As far as the human body systems, which is a big part of my year, I've seen much better engagement with the visuals and just understanding. Yeah, so definitely improved performance.
I usually find that when kids are selecting what works for them, they're gonna internalize that learning much more. So the engagement automatically goes up because they're able to sort of choose their own adventure to the same information that they might get just through reading an article. But we know that it's really hard to keep kids engaged all the time just with reading something, because that can be really a challenge for a lot of kids, especially when we're looking at different grade levels. So they really need access to the different types of information.
I feel like I always leave, especially now that I'm into this Universal Design for Learning and giving students flexible choice. I want students to always know that if they have a different idea that I didn't propose, I always want them to come and ask me.
We almost never use assessments that are like test assessments, right? The only reason why in social studies we would use that is to actually teach test-taking strategies and skills.
For the scrapbooking, so just to kind of let you know what a scrapbook is, right? So instead of a traditional written reading response, I allowed them to write it on either a actual drawing notebook. They could either do it online on a Google Sites, and kids were defending their thinking about the characters in their story or the author's craft or whatever skill we were working on.
Most of our assessments are just that. They're really open. We might have kids writing a paragraph about something, but I will work with those students if somebody wanted to illustrate something to show their learning, right? That would be something that we would also use. So we've had lots of different ways for kids to show their learning.
We started with a Jamboard example, so I used a Jamboard with him, and then he went from the Jamboard to a storyboard, and then he was like, well, I really would like to invite my friend and we'll do an interview. So then we have videos. I have a whole digital notebook that they did, and you could just see the progression of media.
Sometimes we'll give options for showing your learning. So the goal might be to learn all of the organelles in a cell, and one way you could show that you know it would be to take a quiz and have to label it. Another way might be to do the kind of art project. I've had kids do stop motion animation videos. So I try to let the assessment be pretty open-ended.
The project that we're working on right now, where they're telling about homes from somewhere else in the world, I've given them it's funny, I've given them options like you could make a picture book, illustrating a day in the life of somebody that lives in that country and just include all the information. So you have your checklist of information. You can present it any way that you want. But the most popular one has always been to build the house, and to do a very project-y project. So I think that in a lot of ways, there's comfort at this grade level where kids really have the comfort in the example and what people have done before, and then it gives them something to work towards. I'll give them opportunities to do different things, but very often they'll just stick with like what they know or what's sort of laid out for them.
I facilitated the learning, but they flourished and were able to defend their thinking in a better way than they would have if they wrote it in a response. Yeah, I totally believe that all educators should use multimedia visuals because why not?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can't run a class without it. I mean, you could, but I don't think you're going to have the buy-in that a lot of us do.
I would definitely encourage them to use visuals because it does increase motivation, does increase understanding.
When I get the feedback from kids that they love coming to social studies or that they love my class for a lot of different reasons, I know it's not just because I'm the person standing in the front of the room, right? It's because of the different ways that we work together to come up with ways to engage kids and to keep them interested.
Sometimes I think if teachers are resistant to using visuals in the classroom, I think that might be people sort of stuck in older school ways of teaching. If we look at how education is going, visual literacy is a big part of the skill we need kids to have. And so I would just encourage people to use visuals, all different types of visuals, but just to add to engagement, to add to understanding both.
It's all about making one small shift. So if they're not using it right now, take one small shift and try something new. It doesn't have to be crazy, but I think the more that we try little things, and we get more confident, just like our students, right? And I think a lot of the times if we're asking students to take risks, we as educators also need to do it, because I think it just makes us lifelong learners, which continues to give me the passion.